Welcome to Earth-Centric Lighting, for everything lighting related and how to use lighting in your projects and life.
Okay, so you guys, I'm super excited today because this is my first interviewee on the Earth-Centric Lighting podcast, and I reached out to David Warfel, and he said yes. So I'm super excited because he's someone that I look up to a lot because I have my own lighting design company, and um, he is someone who I reached out to a while ago to ask for advice, and he willingly gave me lots of advice about starting a lighting design business, and it helped out saving a lot of years. So I'm very, very grateful. He's got a good heart, and I'm glad to have him on today.
Thanks for having me, Travis. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So maybe for the listeners, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into what you do.
Good question. So I would say about 10 years ago, I had what I hope was an early midlife crisis, but the kind of, oh, what am I doing? Is this really what I want to be doing for the rest of my life? And decided to go in a new direction. And I took components of my first career, which was as an architect and home builder, and I added some components of my second career, which was as a theatrical lighting designer. And then I threw in a dash of my third career, which was as a college professor, where I learned how to simplify all this stuff for hungover 19-year-olds, to be able to understand. And I put it together into Light Can Help You. And we focus now on almost exclusively on the high-end custom residential space, though we have aspirations to do every size of home, every kind of home that's out there. And we work across the country. We have a network of what we call signature partners, who are custom integrators across the country who we work very closely with, so we can do the design work through the documentation, and then they handle the controls and the calibration and implementation of the work. So it's proven a unique but very successful business model, and we've grown really rapidly over the last few years as a result. So there's the sort of the professional journey, but in a nutshell, I'm a Midwestern farm kid who's overly sensitive and marginally materialistic, and just as comfortable rolling up my shirt sleeves and getting my hands dirty as I am putting on French cuffs and strutting around like a high priced designer. So that's a nutshell of who I am.
I love that answer, man. That's so good. Thank you. That's good to know. I didn't even realize too that you had been in architecture before, and I knew that you were a professor, and that makes a lot of sense because of the way that you articulate things and put together. And you've really been a good role model to me to challenge to think how I think about lighting design and how that's communicated to the clients. And I'm very, very yeah, I look to you as a mentor, I would say, in that department. So maybe for the listeners that are tuning in and they haven't heard of lighting design, they only know what that is. What is lighting design?
What is lighting design? Well, there's the question of the whole career, right?
That's
We
right.
get that question all the time, Travis. People are like, a homeowner who's building a house or whatever gets introduced to us, and they'll say, well, what do you do that's different than what's already on my plans? Because most likely the plans have circles on them. They have, a grid of recessed downlights or something on those plans. And it's like, okay, well, there's going to be light. The architect had to put it on there so they could get a permit. And our answer usually is, well, we do everything different than what's on your plans. We're going to use different lights. We're going to put them in different places. We're going to use them at different times to do different things. And you're going to end up with different results. And it really is, what we do is so fundamentally different. What lighting designers do is so fundamentally different than what's normal or what's acceptable out there, that it sometimes defies explanation. But basically, if you want to boil it down, I would say, that really good feeling you get on the first day, the first warm day of spring, and you go outside and you just stand in the sun and you feel it. That's kind of the experience we want people to have. It's a good experience. It feels good. And then think about, like, visiting with some friends around a campfire, whatever, having a couple beers or whatever it is, around a fire pit. like the sort of the warmth and the comfort of the stars above and the fire in front of you, like that's another awesome experience that has light as a central component of it. And if we can extract the beauty and comfort and feel of that and deliver it to people more often than once a spring and, once every couple of months with some friends, like if we can provide that experience to people, then lighting design has been successful.
So you're creating a visual and a sensation experience with light.
People don't necessarily need to notice lighting design, but they will feel it, right? So like they will like physically feel the difference when they're in a well illuminated space. They'll be like, this is my favorite restaurant. Is the food really better than the one down the street? I'm not so sure it is, but the atmosphere, there's something about it that just makes people really comfortable there. And oftentimes lighting is part of that. We're very emotional creatures, and our eyes are designed to take in light and analyze it, and our brains are trained to analyze it. So we're a lot of our human experience is actually around sight, and sight is dependent on light. So if you want to do it, do it well, then you're going to do it as a combination of creative intention and lighting design.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, sorry for the distraction. My video cut out there, but I'm still here.
No worries.
Boy, I have a list of questions for you here, but hearing that too makes me feel like I want to go another direction, thinking about like you're saying, the typical plans of what's acceptable. There's, circles on a page, and people a lot of times it's huge. They go get their own lights at the box stores, and not to name any names. I mean, what's the difference between those type of lights that are available there versus, something that you would design with? And
Yeah, so we use different tools, right? So in one analogy would be to say, let's say you have a beautiful Victorian home, it was built in 1890 or whatever, and it's got all the gingerbread moldings and all the details and trims and fancy woodwork on the outside and whatnot. You can paint that house with a can of spray paint or a bunch of cans of spray paint, right? And it will get the job done, and it will cover the house with paint. But if you use different tools, right, like professional sprayers and detail brushes and all of those kinds of things, you have the ability to completely change how that house looks. Like completely change how that house looks. And I think of that, it's like, okay, well, there's the old house down the street that's now a 6-unit college apartment rental, and it's all painted white. And then there's the one that's, been beautifully restored, and it's stunning and it's beautiful. Could be the exact same house, but it looks and feels completely different because there were different tools used to achieve different results. And so from a light fixture standpoint, like what we buy at a big box retailer, like they have to compete based on price, right? That's like they have to be able to deliver a product at a price that beats their neighbors. And so it's kind of like this race to the bottom. Let's do it as cheaply as we possibly can. And what that means is we use LEDs that efficiently produce light, but do not efficiently deliver it into the space. So we get what we call disc lights or wafer lights or canless recessed lights or things like that. Those are all the rage in construction, in residential construction right now, because they are super cheap. They are super easy to install. But if you actually look at how they produce illumination, we also call them blob lights, because there'll be a blob of light up near the ceiling. It'll be very glary, and actually the countertop below or the book you're trying to read will be very poorly illuminated. So we need fixtures that, like a garden hose, actually squeeze the handle a little bit more and push that light down to where you need it, or push that light to where where it's going to do the most good for you. And that takes optics, it takes mechanics, it takes a higher degree of engineering. So it costs more, and that's hard to include, or
yeah,
it's hard to sell an expensive fixture if a homeowner or a builder doesn't actually know how to use it.
right. That makes so much sense to what you're saying, because yeah, those box store type lights, you touched on glare, right? And you think about that glare, it's just a light source that's just concentrated, and it's right in your peripherals. And with that too, you have that lack of control. So within the first 3 to 4 feet, you're losing 90% of the light output. You're not getting the functional light to your space that you're actually trying to illuminate. And you also touched on the way you explained with the paint cans, the paint analogies. I love that because it's like you're painting, you're an artist and you're painting the walls, the spaces with light, and you want to highlight and accent certain details, and you're achieving that through your designs. You said something else a little while back that I'd want to, where you said we're visual beings and we process things visually, and our brains convert those electrical signals into an image, right? And light plays a big part on that. Do you, because that was in the topic of more of how it makes you feel, right? Too, and you have maybe for someone who doesn't really understand what we're talking about, they're like, light is just light. I don't get it. How does, I guess maybe the question is, does lighting affect your physical and mental health?
Like in some pretty seriously big ways, right? So you're in the Pacific Northwest. Like what I hear, up in the, I had a sister who lived in Seattle area for a while. She's like, seasonal affective disorder is real. She ended up moving to Florida, and she's like, I'm so much happier because there's so much more sun. We for thousands of years, the sun has organized our days. And only in the last 130 have we had electric light. And really, it's probably only been about 80 years or so since electric light was ubiquitous in, what you might call the developed, countries. It's still not there in many places of the world. But what we've done is basically done an 80-year experiment on what happens when we disconnect from the rhythms of natural light. And it's not going well. The experiment is not going well. And part of that is just like we've only really had the science to understand how light affects our eyes, which in turn sends signals to our brains. We've really only had the proof of that for the last 20 years. So like right around 2000 is when they first positively identified the neural pathways in our eyes that take light in, basically absorb photons and send a signal to our brain, but it's not at all connected to seeing a picture. It's not at all connected to vision. It's simply connected to the part of our brain that regulates our time clock. And there's another layer of cells in there that takes light and connects it to the mood center of our brain. So even people who are blind, if they still have those cells in their brain, they can get positive feelings and they can know what time it is because light is still affecting our body and our brain. So it's very rare that people have that condition of both, but there are people who do, and it's really a fascinating sort of proof of what the science has already discovered. And ultimately, what it means is we need light to be happy. We need light to be healthy, and it needs to be the right light. It's not just some light. It's like what happens when you're in a cloudy day for 3 months, or what happens to people who live in a cave, like mood dips. Our bodies don't have the signals that they need to regulate hormones. We just get off. The whole system gets off if we're not experiencing really good light.
Man, there's so many ways I could go there. I feel like that you're touching on so much, and like not enough time in the podcast, but uh the like that was it Taoism, yin and yang, and then so what you're alluding to then maybe essentially of having a designer to have controls so you're not flooding the space with light when you're supposed to be sleeping, correct? Because then it will shut off and automatically certain areas will dim down, so you feel those, because you're supposed to, those moods that you get, they're supposed to adjust throughout the day, right? And then like you're saying, the last 300,000 years or so, we've developed the sun, and this electric light, we don't really know how it works. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but they knew about the cones and the rods in our eyes for vision and peripherals, but then the melanopsin ganglion cells are the ones on the lower part of the eye that send those signals to your SCN, the part of your brain, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, that tells you when to start producing melatonin or low levels of adrenaline and cortisol to keep you awake. So, man, I feel like I could dive down into those topics with you
That's a
but
deep rabbit hole, Travis. It's a deep
yes,
rabbit hole. We start using acronyms like IPRGCs and we're getting into dangerous territory.
yeah, yes. So maybe, yeah, where was I going? I think the part I want to go with that is stick with the health and like, because it affects people's health in a big way if they have the right amount of lighting. And it's not just flooding the space with light either, correct?
No, I mean, flooding the space with light is a little bit like saying, hey, wouldn't it be great to live at Walmart? Or wouldn't it be great to work underneath a gas station canopy? Like where we fill up our cars with gas. Like no one wants to hang out in those spaces. They're not comfortable spaces. They have plenty of light. But if you think about, if you think about the quality of light, for example, that comes from the sky, and I'm not talking about the sun, which is like it's crazy in some ways that we love sunny days as a as a species. We love sunny days. The sun is like the worst possible source of glare. Like you literally go blind if you look at it too long. But it's nice to have it there. But what's really fantastic is not just the sun, it's also the atmosphere. So the atmosphere takes some of that sunlight, breaks it into the blue light that we see coming from the sky, and we get this soft light all around us. So if you want to think about creating a nice environment that is supportive of human well-being, we kind of need soft light all around us. So that's going to be bouncing light off of the ceiling. It's going to be bouncing light off of the tile on the walls, like your background in your studio there. It's going to be, that's going to make things feel better than if we just have light coming down from above. Like light coming down from above is so bad for us that our eyes are sunken into our heads to try and create a shelf, to protect us from that. And we have hats and visors and sunlight. Like we don't like that. It's not good for us. So we need to think about light coming from different places and really being indirect, if you will, but not just bouncing off the ceiling, bouncing off of the other spaces around us. We need. Sometimes I come up with corny terms. And I'm like, we need a lighting hug. Like lighting needs to be all around us. Good light needs to be all around us.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's a good way to visualize it because I think a lot of people don't understand, but they have the capabilities to because there's lots of people pushing product out there, and really you need an expert such as yourself to help guide, and because there's a lot to it, and help create that feeling, that hug. I think you explained it once as I've heard in your courses, you want to bring vertical light into the space, right? Not just horizontal foot candles, but we're also illuminating the walls because we're 3D animals. We interact within the space within the 3D world, right?
Yeah. If you think about it, like the way our head sits on our body is to look straight ahead. Like we actually have to bend our neck to look down on the floor or the countertop, and we have to bend our neck pretty painfully to see the ceiling. So like what's ahead of us, what we're seeing, that's the most important stuff most of the time.
Right.
That's why we have windows on the walls, right? Because we can see out of them, right? That's where good light needs to be. That's just the way our bodies are made.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not just like the overhead lights that you see at the box stores or the Walmart that would cause that discomfort, that overhead. Yeah, there's light to the sides of the walls because there's flooding it, but that's when you're also getting that glare, that discomfort, like you're saying, the sun, like your eyes are trying to tighten up, it doesn't know what it wants to do, right?
Right.
And then yeah, I know there's a lot of value in hiring an expert to look at all that and design it correctly. So how about for someone, maybe they're not the high-end homeowner and they want to start designing or create good lighting in their space. Do you have like, what are the top 3 things you would say maybe you need to do this, this, and this to, if you're trying to light the space and you're trying to get something that feels good and feels right and it's not the box store.
Yeah, I'd say rule number one is light what you want to see. And that seems oversimplified, but it's sort of ridiculous how much we don't light what we want to see. So we use, a chandelier over the dining room table that illuminates the drywall ceiling better than it illuminates the table. We put those disc lights in a bathroom over the sink, so it illuminates the wall above the mirror better than it illuminates our face in front of the mirror. So, you think about like, what is it that we're actually trying to see in this space, or what is it that's actually valuable to us in this space? And is it illuminated and not just, by accident from a big light on the ceiling, but is it intentionally illuminated? So I say number one is just light what you want to see, and number two is be a glare hunter. Like, go after it. If there is if you look around your space and you look at a light fixture and it hurts to look at, then you need to get rid of it or change it. If it hurts to stare directly at the fixture, then it's not doing the right thing for you. So it either needs to be dimmed down to where it's comfortable to look directly at, stare at, or it needs to be gotten rid of or changed. So be a glare hunter. And then the third I would say would be build in flexibility. We've talked a little bit about circadian rhythm or night, sort of our connection to natural cycles. It's not about turning off the lights at night. It's like if we want to really feel the best, we need our lights to gradually get darker over several hours, and our eyes will adapt and our body will adapt. And by the time it's bedtime, think about the kids. By the time it's bedtime, they will be going to sleep. instead of hey, okay, kids, click, turn the lights off, now go to sleep. And we're like, why don't they go to sleep? It's like, well, it's not natural. Of course they aren't going to go to sleep.
Man, yeah, you're hitting there on that. Thank you. I love those three, light what you want to see, and then be a glare hunter and build in flexibility. I think those are three amazing tips. I do also love the tip there, because with the kids and the lights full on bright, right? We're not getting our melatonin production with those lights on, and additional hormones as well. So I would say it's very important to have that flexibility so it adjusts. Is that something, do you partner up with those custom integrators to help build in that flexibility with those controls?
Yeah, and we're seeing quite a bit of advancement in the control side, because what we've come to understand is, like, let's say 3000 degrees Kelvin, light or whatever is perfect for a couple minutes in the morning and a couple minutes in the afternoon. Well, who's going to actually be standing there next to the, dimmers or controls and constantly be adjusting them? It's just not practical. Like we have other things we want to do with our time. So the control systems now have, in essence, a natural cycle built into them. So you can just basically enable that. Say, okay, yeah, give me a natural day. And because we're humans and we don't really want to get up when the sun comes up, because like where I am in Wisconsin, today is the longest day of the year. The sun's not going to go down until 8:45. It doesn't actually get dark until 10 o'clock, and then it'll be bright again at 5 a.m. So yeah. Like some of us want a little bit more sleep than that or whatever, or that's not our sleep cycle. So we can actually adjust that. We can say, well, why don't you give me a 24-hour day as if I was living on the equator, or whatnot. You can have the sun rise and set the way you need it to when you're controlling that over time and controlling it electrically and digitally. So the controls have really come a long way to make it easier. So you don't even have to think about it. You can just, it just does it.
Right.
Like the sun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's adjusting automatically. And then if they want to override it, they can come and push a little button in.
Yep.
So for those that don't know, is because I think I get the feeling there's still like uncertainty around the whole smart home thing. How are lighting controls different than smart home?
So a smart home probably includes anything that's digitally connected to that's making autonomous decisions, or it's connected to an external source, or it's voice controlled or whatever. So it can be thermostat, it can be shading, it can be music is a big one, television, like all this stuff is door locks, all of that stuff is smart home. And lighting can be a component of a smart home. It can be just another one of those devices or another one of those systems that is somehow connected to the others, so that when you say, Alexa, turn on the party scene or whatever, the lights can change as well as the music, as well as the TV, or whatever. So lighting can be connected to that. It doesn't have to be. Lighting controls can be 100% separate from a smart home. So, we deal with a lot of clients who don't really want gadgets, right? They don't want to overcomplicate things. Well, a lighting control system can actually simplify their lives by making it easier for them to get the lights in just the right way at just the right time. And that could be just a simple keypad on the wall. The electronics are all buried in the basement, and you just walk into the room and push the top button and it knows what to do. So that can be embedded in the lighting controls. And it can talk to a smart house as well. It can, know where you are and know when you get home and all of those things, but it doesn't have to.
Yeah, that sounds great. And then if you are adding in the layers of light and all these accents, and then it also, I've heard it described as cleaning up the wall acne, so you don't have so many switches, right? They have a system, simplifies it, puts it right there. That's awesome. How about, well, actually, I think that's probably it for the questions I have, unless you're thinking that you have anything that you want to add specifically. But if you don't, I definitely would like to hear from you, your future plans. I know that you were in a book. Are you planning on writing your own book, or you want to share?
Yeah, good question. So, I'm passionate about light, and I'm passionate about sharing it with other people. So, I'm not going to claim to be the best lighting designer in the world, because I'm not, right? There are people out there who have a higher degree of experience. They have a higher level of craft than I have, and they're just phenomenal at what they do. What I do well, or reasonably well, is take the massive amount of science and art and geometry and all the complexities of light and technology, and I kind of dumb it down. And maybe that's because I'm not as smart as some people, right? I need to simplify it. But ultimately what I want to do is I want to make good lighting more accessible to more people. Like, we all deserve, like, good light should be a fundamental human right. And right now there are many of us who are not enjoying that. We're not benefiting from that. So if I can decode things and make that more accessible, then I'm a winner. I feel like I've won, like I've accomplished something. So yeah, a book. Yeah, I've got reams of writing and continue to work on writing my writing, so that I'll have the material necessary for a book. I would love to at least one do that published. And probably what I'm going to need to do next is somehow get on people's screens. So we're talking television shows, we're talking YouTube, we're talking those kinds of things, like basically to equip people to get better light, or to at least understand that there's another way to live. There's a better way to live.
Well, I feel like you are succeeding at that too as well, but keep going, because I I think that's awesome. Because as I said, I've reached out to you. I've seen the videos you've already done. You've changed the way I've been in the design field, and I look to you as a mentor. You've changed the way I even think of light, and I think you are communicating that in a way that makes sense to people, because there's so many experts in this field of lighting. There's like color theory, there's neuroscientists that study vision and the brain, and there's lots of different ways that you can go with this whole light thing. And I think helping simplify it so people can make it, digest it and understand it and apply it is a very worthy thing, because like you said, we have, as a human species, have developed to the rising and the setting of the sun, and we lack the expertise, or not the expertise, we just lack the knowledge, and we're very capable of learning. It's just good to have people out there educating people, because that electrical
Yeah.
light bulb was just invented.
Right. You can't blame people if they don't know. They've never had an option. They've never experienced, they've never run across a better way to do it. So
Right.
like, I don't blame the builders who build houses with horrible lighting, because why, what we know the reasons to do
Yeah.
it differently, but if they don't know the reasons, then why would they do it? Like, it just makes total sense to me. So like, we've just got to keep doing what you're doing. So I love the fact that you're doing this podcast, and love seeing your stuff on social media, getting out there, getting the word out about lighting. I think the more of us that do that, the more people we can help. And that's, ultimately at the end of the day, for me, like, if I can help somebody, then I feel like I've done a good day's work. So keep up what you're doing, and together we'll change the world, Travis.
I love it. Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. That's an honor hearing that from you. And then, so my first podcast interview, very excited. So glad to have you here. And I thought it went great. And another thing I forgot to mention at the very beginning was, I think I did, your company, Light Can Help You, which I love the name. So if there's someone's hearing this and they're interested in your services, they're like, oh, lighting design, I want to get into that. What's the best way for them to reach out or get a hold of you?
Yeah, just look us up on the website at lightcanhelpyou.com, or you can reach me directly at david@lightcanhelpyou.com. So we're easy to find once you know the strange name of the company.
Great. And we'll definitely put that in the show notes too, so people can look and find it and reach out.
Awesome. But if you're in Travis's neighborhood, call Travis first.
Thanks.
Right.
Thanks
Yeah.
for the recommendation. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then again, like you have your own successful lighting company, and I started separate from Earth Centric Lighting, TK Lighting Design, and I just reached out to you and you're like willing. Yeah, man, let me help you out. Let me give you advice. I've been through it. So just an outstanding human being. And I feel like a lot of other people would be like, no, you're competition. I can't talk to you. And no, you're willing to help out, man. So I love it. And David, thank you very much for your knowledge and for coming on the show.
Travis, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm happy to hear that something I've done has been a little helpful. So I'm glad to hear that, and I admire you from afar. So thanks for this opportunity.
Okay, guys, thank you for tuning in and listening to the podcast. I looked it up. That interview was 2 years ago. It was me and David, and it was my first time interviewing someone. Probably a little bit rusty, but that's okay. It went really good. And just getting to hear his knowledge and information was great. And I'm glad now that I'm working back on the podcast and putting it together. So hoping to have some more here for you guys in the future. And thank you again for tuning in.